Yes, March 2018 report.
Oh, okay. Amanda, take that for me, please.
Yep, I got it. We'll speak to it at 7.2.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Bill? Any comments? Which we had one already, so, okay, go ahead, Amanda.
So the motion reads that the North Huron Museum Committee accept the agenda for the May 13th, 2020 committee meeting as amended. Betty Lou Call?
You're on mute, Betty. Or Lou.
Bill Farnell?
Yes.
David Wall?
Yes.
Dixie Lee Arbuckle?
Yes.
Doug Kyvenhoven?
Yes, the only question I have here, Amanda, is we had the three of us had discussed about having that we present to council when they meet in person again. Is that in there somewhere? Are we going to discuss that?
I will have to discuss that, Doug, okay?
We can discuss that at 7.2 as well.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you have my motion.
Joan Vandermeer?
Yes.
Member Verna Steffler?
Got to unmute yourself.
Yes.
And Paul Hepper.
Yes.
All right, that carries 8-0, so we can move on.
Declaration of your interests. None noted. Public comment, opportunity for members of the public to speak to an item of business on the agenda. 2 minutes per person. Amanda, you have to let me know if anybody's on there.
No, it's just the members today.
Okay, just members, okay. Moving on to number 5, minutes of the previous meeting that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby adopts the minutes of the meeting held April 8th, 2021 as presented. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it.
David, seconder?
Yes.
Joel? Amanda, comments? Sorry, no comment. Okay, Amanda?
Okay, Bill Farnell?
Yes.
David Wall?
Yes.
Dixie Lee Arbuckle?
Yes.
Doug Kyvenhoven?
Yes.
Joan Vandermeer?
Yes.
Verna Steffler?
Yes.
Betty Lou Cole?
Yes.
And Paul Hepper.
Yes.
That carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, delegations, none. 7, we're into reports now. 7.1, CKNX Barn Dance Society Artifacts. Joan will be addressing this. Oh,
Okay. For our report, I think we need clear wording in regards to there's a lot of background noise. In regards to the barn dance's decision of whether they're going to, like, Dave, is the barn dance still going to be operational? Will they have a display in the museum, or are they disbanding and donating what's left?
I haven't any clear decision, like we haven't been able to meet, but it sounds like we'll be donating what's left of our artifacts to the museum. We're trying to get them dispersed, but we haven't been able to do any more of it with COVID. We have a lot of things that we can donate. Like we have what we had on the page 6 there that we can donate.
So would we make a statement in the report, something to the effect that the barn dance has dispersed their artifacts and won't be having a display in the museum, or how would, or a decision is reserved until members can meet when COVID is over, when lockdown's over? Like, we just need something to indicate to council if it's still a viable entity or whether it's disbanding.
It's pretty well disbanding, like we haven't officially disbanded. We're not going to have our own museum anymore. Like that's pretty well a given. And we're going to try and give a bunch of the artifacts to the North Huron Museum. But we're not certain how many or what all will be left to give besides what we have listed on page 6.
Go ahead, Doug.
I had to unmute myself. What if we just said in the report, like barn dance, it is expected that the CKNX Barn Dance Museum will not be reopening, and a number of borrowed artifacts are being returned to the the people that donated them, and or however we word that, and then the remainder items will be donated to the North Huron Museum. Is expected to be donated to the North Huron Museum. Just use the word expected.
That's a good way of putting it, Doug.
Because until they meet, we don't have, they can't give us an official, but Dave pretty well understands that's where it's at. Would that work then, Joan? Like that'd be sufficient, you think?
I think that, like, we need to make mention of them. And I think that we can work the wording around that. So we'll send it to you, Dave, for your approval before we include it.
Okay,
Does that sound good?
sounds good.
Okay, thank you. So everybody's happy with 7.1, what we came up with there then? Okay, thank you. Now, we're moving on to 7.2, final report, final presentation. Bill and Doug, your names beside this?
How'd you get so far through all those motions?
Oh. Okay, right. Do I have mover? On 7.1, going back to 7.1, sorry. 7.1, do I have a mover? Bill, or sorry, yeah, Bill.
Sorry, Paul, there is no motion on 7.1. It's after 7.2.
Yeah, there's a bunch of I was reading a bunch of the 7.2s there, Paul, and there's a bunch of that and further that and further that's in that point before we get to member Kyvan and Farnell.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now I see where, okay, good. So we're going to go to 7.2 then?
For discussion, yes.
Yeah, open this up for discussion. So do I go ahead and read that first now, Amanda, or?
Sure, yep, and
Okay.
then they can present their final report
Okay.
and presentation.
That the North Huron Museum Committee hereby receives a North Huron Museum report presented at the May 13th, 2021 committee meeting, and further that the committee agrees to incorporate CKNX Barn Dance Society comments as discussed at May 13th, 2021 meeting into the final report, and further that the committee hereby agrees that North Huron Museum report be considered final and ready to present it to council, and further that council staff be directed to inform the clerk that the museum committee has completed its mandate and are ready to appear as a delegation to council for the purposes of presenting this final report. And further, that member Kyvenhoven, member Farnell be selected to present the delegation to council on behalf of the committee.
Okay, so I guess officially do we approve the motion or start amending the motion now? What's proper, Amanda?
I would go through your final presentation, final report, just outline what you guys have changed in that final report from the last committee meeting. I would
Okay,
probably start there and then we can do the motion later.
and we'll go kind of point by point through it then. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure on process there. So, okay, because the one thing that I'm wanting to not have us not forget is that the third and further, where it says presenting the final appears a delegation to council. I'd like to see inserted in there at the when council resumes in-person meetings. That's kind of where we're coming from, right? Bill and Dixie Lee and Joan, we talked about that. So we've done all this work and we really want it to go. We think it's important that it be in person, and if that means waiting a couple months, then we're good with that. Rather than having to try to do this over Zoom, and it's so difficult to do it properly over Zoom.
Okay, Joan?
If we could discuss it a little bit, and further that staff be directed to inform the clerk that the museum committee has completed its mandate. We haven't completed our mandate because part of our mandate is the fundraising. So I think that needs to be reworded, or is the fundraising being removed from our mandate?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the
Go ahead.
fundraising is not, it was a fundraising plan. It wasn't the actual the act of fundraising. It was developing the fundraising plan.
You all right with that, Joan?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, to Vicky, who would be doing the fundraising then? I thought that was the members were expected to do that.
The members of this committee, the mandate
Yes.
was to, through you, Mr. Chairman, the mandate of this committee was to develop a proposal to council. And then that would include a fundraising plan and show how this could be paid for. It wasn't necessarily that this committee would do the actual fundraising and stuff. Additional people, I mean, the members of this committee certainly would be welcome to be on it, and additional members from the public could be involved, but this was to come up with the proposal that would incorporate a fundraising plan.
Yes, Joan, you still have your hand up? Hello, Joan, you disappeared. You had
Sorry. Thank you, Vicky, for clarifying that. I totally misunderstood that part of the equation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I saw Doug and then Bill. I think those two hands were up. Oh. You're on mute, Doug?
Yeah, to Joan, if the council doesn't approve the whole thing, then there is nothing left for us to do. I think if they do approve it, then they could throw it back to the committee and say, would you extend your term now to do the fundraising, that kind of thing. So I think that makes sense. What Vicky's saying is that we will have completed the mandate once we've done the presentation to the council.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, Bill, you had your hand up?
Doug answered my comment or my question. I'm clear now.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other questions about that? Oh, sorry, Verna.
It does say here, the committee will be responsible for fundraising and would raise the funds through.
Yeah.
Now, are we talking about this committee or are we talking about a different committee?
Again, through you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
The purpose of this committee is to develop the proposal that would include the fundraising plan that would be implemented.
Okay, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Because I remember saying, okay, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I got an email from Doug after he was talking to Bernie. And one of the things that I'm noting in that particular email is that the things that we needed to cover, this is what Bernie's saying, the things that we needed to cover in our report were the funds that need to be raised and the assurance that this will be raised by the committee. So there seems, we're getting mixed messages maybe, I don't know.
Doug, go ahead.
unmuted first. I don't think we should get too caught up on this point. I think, you know, it's going to work through. It's like if the thing gets approved, then the council's going to look to us and say, okay, are you guys going to raise the funds? So I think we're just getting a little bit caught up on fine print here. If it's approved, you know, we'll be the likely candidates that will be asked to then proceed with raising the funds.
Right, I remember seeing something mentioned about different ways it was going to be planned on doing it, so I imagine it'll be covered. Sorry, there's another hand there. I saw a hand go up. Verna.
Well, I believe what Doug is talking about are the change of that.
Oh, you're on mute, Verna.
You accidentally muted, Verna.
Okay. I thought it was that second last paragraph and further that it was possibly where we could add the fact that Doug says we do it when council is back. Not that it's that we're ready to appear as a delegation to council. Can we not just add to that statement when we're talking about?
Go ahead, Doug.
I think you're jumping ahead of us, Verna. Let's kind of work our way through the motions. You jumped to like we're still dealing with this fundraising thing, so let's clean that up first. I think, are we done with fundraising? We're all cool with it? What we're saying?
Dixie has her hand up. We'll ask Dixie.
No, I just noticed on one of the drafts of the work plan, we did say raise all funds to cover the cost of furnishing, equipping, and moving the artifacts. And I don't know, excuse me, if that was a draft that council approved and where we stand in light of that.
Okay. Anybody like to comment
Can
on
anyone
that?
answer that?
Lou?
I'm not on, and I'm sorry I don't have the information in front of me. But Verna, Doug, and Vicky probably do have it. Are there dates attached on our original commitment to being on this committee? Are there dates attached to either giving our final report to council or seeing the project through, including the fundraising? Are there dates for that? I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
Vicky has her. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Vicky.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the dates that were associated with this committee it could be in place for the term of council. And you had until the end of the term of council to develop a proposal to come forward. That was the term. So the work plan that was developed is a little bit separate than what the mandate of the committee was. You can't be asked to fulfill fundraising unless it's been approved by council. The project has to be approved.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Dixie.
Well, part of the mandate was to develop a work plan. And maybe I'm just splitting hairs about finding it in one draft. I can't find other drafts offhand. We did put it in one of our work plans, so I don't know if that binds us or if we just don't worry about it.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it does not bind you.
Okay.
At all, okay?
Yeah. So,
thank you.
Okay, so that is cleared up with the fundraising then. Okay, thank you. So we'll carry on. Go ahead. Somebody was asked next part of the question here. Doug, go ahead.
So if we're going through this motion point by point, then before we get to the Bill and Doug presentation thing, then should we resolve, Mr. Chair, that, and further, the committee hereby agrees North Huron be considered final ready to be presented to council. Oh, and then for the third and further that staff be directed to inform the clerk that the committee has completed its mandate and are ready to appear as a delegation for the purpose of presenting this final report. When, add to that and further, add to the end of that thing, when council resumes in-person meetings. Can that amendment be added to that, Amanda?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's
Yeah,
Vicky
oh,
speaking.
Okay.
Yeah,
Vicky.
sorry. So the issue that we have is it's the clerk's responsibility to schedule the items that are coming up on the agenda, the delegations and things based on what's what he has before him, right? And things. And so, you know, we could even if you passed a motion right now saying it's going on June 7th, we have to put a request in, but it's not guaranteed because he has to see what, you know, what everything is timed out within a time frame. In terms of council meeting in person, that really prolongs the process because we don't know when council is going to be meeting again in person. Even if the like the premier just announced today, it's another 2 weeks that the lockdown's being extended. That does not mean it does not mean that council will be meeting right away, meeting in person. Correct, Mr. Chairman? Right. Yeah, because that's not how it's been. So, you know, we do have to make some decisions. You could be sitting here in January still waiting for an in-person meeting. So I know everyone wants an in-person meeting. I understand that. But anything that's put forward is subject to the clerk scheduling it and things. So just letting you know that, okay? Usually you put your submission in and then the clerk lets you know when it can be scheduled. That's really the process. They will notify you when you can go on.
Go ahead, Doug.
My concern here is that we're going to get railroaded into presenting when we don't want to present. And we have waited this long. I have waited this long with the train station, still paying my taxes to town. And, you know, I don't want to blow all this effort on a Zoom meeting where we're not going to have the impact that we want to have. And so therefore, I am hesitant to approve this motion to give the clerk the potential of just simply sliding us onto a Zoom meeting with the council. We've done way too much work for that, and that would just tick me off. I'm being blunt. Like, it's just, come on. We expect that the summer things should lighten up, and so if we have to wait till July or August, then I believe that we should wait till then. And then if we find it's just going out too long and there's no hope, but I don't believe that, because how many of us have got vaccinated, right? I got mine yesterday. And so we're gonna get in the right direction here with the summer. It's coming. And so we need to present this in person to council. And when I'm not prepared to just say, sure, we're all done, go ahead, clerk, schedule us in. And Carson just puts us in a Zoom meeting. That's my position, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I see another hand, Verna.
I totally agree. We still have at least another year of this council. And I totally agree with Doug. We've put too much effort into this to be just shoved into any time at all. I think if we've got a chance at all, we've got to do it to a council meeting, not to a bunch of faces on a screen. So I totally agree with Doug. I think we need to put it in, and I pray to God we don't have to still be doing this in July and August, but anyway, just want to let you know, totally
Thank
agree.
you. Thank you, Dixie.
Yes, I agree also. And so does my dog, but anyway, stop that. In addition, I believe we were planning on a PowerPoint component. And I know it can be done on WebEx and Zoom, but I think it's just more impactful all around and it respects all the hours and hours of work we've put in to present in person.
Okay, thank you. And I saw Lou's hand. Go ahead, Lou.
I am in total agreement with what Doug says. And now my question is, suppose we say we're going to hold out till we're comfortable as a committee. Do we have the right through council, or can we do it ourselves to just disband meeting until the time is right? Like, we don't need to come together and look at each other every month.
No.
Just because we're not ready, council isn't ready to accept us face to face. Are we allowed to do that?
So am I understanding, Lou, you want to put it all together and then just go on hold until things open?
Are we allowed to, Paul?
So Vicky and Amanda aren't tied up with meetings?
Yeah.
Then?
Yes, I'm asking that question.
Okay. I just want to make sure I was hearing it right. Okay.
You got it.
Vicky, could you speak to this?
This is unusual question. Thanks, Lou.
I'm giving you a break.
You're giving me a break. That's a really good question, and I'm not sure I can answer it or Amanda can answer it, actually. I guess it depends on how you frame that recommendation. I mean, the thing is your minutes from this meeting, Amanda may correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll go to council on Monday. Is that right, Amanda, or?
No, this meeting minutes will have to be approved at the next meeting when they're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so no recommendations go to this, the next meeting then, right?
No.
Well, if a motion is passed at this meeting, it will go to the next meeting.
Okay, so on Monday.
Well as the last meeting minutes that just got approved. And
Okay,
then if
so
this
if
was the final meeting, this one would be done too. It just
Okay.
depends if this is the final meeting or not. It's kind
So
of hard.
if this is the final meeting, then they passed a motion stating that they wanted to present in person at a council meeting, at the first council meeting, it's in person or something like that. Would that go to Monday's council meeting? That's my question.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it would be up to council to decide, I guess, then on Monday, whether or not to agree to that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Ultimately up to them.
Yeah, it is. It's ultimately up to them if they would allow you to wait or if they would tell you to go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Vicky. Doug, you had your hand up. Thanks.
I mean, there's a simple political game that I can play here. We refuse to consider their final report and keep on amending our report. Like, I mean, I can play that game because the report isn't done. Like, I got a letter from somewhere. One of you sent me another letter from another thing to be added to the report. Lou, yeah, you sent me a letter, Lou, that it's added to the report. So the report's not final. We just passed a motion that we're going to have the barn dance stuff added to the report. The report's not final. So we don't have to approve, or we actually can approve that this is the final report for council. It's not ready. So we will meet again next month and we will keep amending this report infinitum until there's in-person meetings. I mean, politicians play these games all the time. So I'll do it. I'm not getting promoted into doing a Zoom meeting presentation after all this time that we have put into this. No way.
I see your point there, but I was hoping that we'd be able to read it the way Lou said. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Somebody was talking there. I'm sorry. Joan?
Oh, I agree that our report is not finished. We were still going to discuss adding, Pat Newsom's report as an addendum. Like, we still have some tweaking to do to it. It's not final.
Okay. Thank you. And Vicky, I think maybe your hand was up then too, maybe when Joan.
No, I'm fine. You're, Mr. Chairman, I'm
okay.
fine.
Okay. So how are we going to carry this on now? Amanda, can this be sort of like you're saying, the final meeting till we can go to the in-person, or do we need another meeting here?
It's up to the committee to decide
Yeah.
if it's final
Okay,
or not.
thank you. I just want to get that right. Doug, your hand was.
Okay, Mr. Chair. I mean, we cannot approve this motion because we do not have a complete report. It is not final. The committee won't have seen the final report. We have more amendments to make to it. So that's actually a simple one. This meeting is that the part that says here, guys, and furthermore, the committee hereby agrees that North Huron is considered final and ready to be presented to council. Actually, we honestly can't reprove that this meeting. Like that's not even playing games yet. That's just being honest that we don't have a final report.
Okay, thank you. Lou?
Because I proposed that as a possibility, can I also propose that Amanda doesn't bother putting the comment in our minutes so nobody has to see it?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't actually, you don't put in all the discussion and talk back and forth. It's motions that end up in your minutes, actual motions. All the yabbering that we do back and forth like this is not part of the official minutes.
No.
Correct?
It's whatever carries the meeting forward is what is put in.
Okay. Okay, oh, sorry, Verna had her hand up. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, if you're needing a motion about it anyway, you can go as far as the second paragraph, which is, and further that the committee agrees to incorporate the CKNX Barn Dance Society comments as discussed. End of the final report. End of motion. You're still talking about another meeting and another report.
Bill?
We still have to decide if we're going to add, and I hope we do, Pat Newsom's report,
Right.
which would then be part of a final, like another, further that, maybe, I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, Amanda, I think I saw your hand up there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're kind of jumping all over the place. So I was thinking, what if we go to 7.2 and Doug, Bill, and whoever else was doing the changes from the last meeting? What were the changes that happened from last meeting to this meeting, just so I can get those in the minutes?
Go. Okay, good. The report is, so I'm just, would you like me to speak, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so I'm actually looking at the report in the agenda package, just scrolling through it. And the changes that we made to the report was we added on page 7 the military. So there's the photo and the piece about the military was added. Okay. Then I think all that was beyond that, Amanda. I think the only other thing we did was the additional letters that came in. So we had at the end, there were several letters of support were added. I can't specifically remember which ones since the last report. You could compare the reports if you wanted to get specific, but actually, I think the last time I was to the committee, I just had the names of the reports. I didn't actually have the letters. So Appendix 8 letters of support were added. that should probably do for your minutes then. Would that be okay, Amanda?
Through you, Chair. Yes, that's okay. What was added was the presentation as well. Do you want to speak to that?
Right, okay, so then, we did a draft of the presentation, so that's the PowerPoint that's at the end after page 41 of the report. Then you've got some pages that are on the landscape mode, they're sideways, and that is the PowerPoint presentation. But that was just a quick rough draft that Bill and I did, and we didn't finalize it. So that's just because there is more to be done with that PowerPoint presentation. A couple points added. So that's just the first draft of the PowerPoint that's there. Now, we could, like, rather than getting all, well, maybe I guess we do deal with the motion. I'm trying to think of how we handle this, Mr. Chair. Is that, should we just actually go through and amend the motion right now? Like Bill had started on that, and I think, pardon me, and Verna, right? So, is that, do you want?
Go ahead.
Okay, so why don't I go through that? We just sort of work our way through that motion as to what we will actually approve at this meeting, right?
Yeah,
So
just a moment there, Doug. Amanda, I thought I saw her hand up.
Yes, through you, Chair. Sorry, Doug. Maybe we should talk about the report, and maybe we can incorporate that in the motion as well if needed, so it's all kind of combined.
okay. So let's take a shot at that. So the first section, that the North Huron Museum Committee hereby received North Huron Museum report presented at the May 13th, 2021 meeting, right? So the committee receives the report, which we've just done. Further, that the committee agrees to incorporate CKNX barn dance comments as discussed into the final report. So that was what Joan talked about. That's good. And then we nix the next one. The committee hereby is agreed be considered final and ready. That's not true. So scratch that second and further right out of the motion. And then the next one is about presenting, so we scratch that out too. And then we say the one about Dixie Lee, and further that the Pat Newsom report of be added to the report. Is that?
Right.
If you want to, do you need the wording of that right now, Amanda? Like, do you want Dixie to give that to you?
Yeah, I'm just crafting it now.
I used the wording, the beginning from the second section. The committee agrees to incorporate, and then the report,
Pat Newsom.
the March 2018 report by
Pat Newsom.
by Pat Newsom, or do we need to say former director of recreation and facilities? I don't know
Former
how much
director.
detail we need.
Former director, recreation and facilities.
Yeah, and then Pat Newsom, her name.
Was there a date for March 2018? Was there a day?
Oh, well, it was. It looks like March 3rd.
Is there a title on it?
Well, the title is just North Huron Museum, because I think she also incorporated Alan Avis's report at that time as well on the architect's report on the condition of the building. But we didn't want that part. We just wanted her historical report.
Okay, so I have, and further that the committee agrees to incorporate the March 3rd, 2018 report by former Director of Recreation and Facilities titled North Huron Museum.
Yes.
Okay, so that takes care of that one. And so then
Thank you.
we don't do so we already said we skip the third and further doesn't work because we aren't complete. And the fourth and further that about the presentation were not complete, so that doesn't happen. And then we can include the and further that member Kivenhoven and member Farnell be selected to present the delegation to council on behalf of the committee. And then, so that takes care of the whole motion, and so we could approve that, and then Bill and I could do our first presentation to the committee, which we're ready to do here, and receive feedback. So we're not presenting the final, we're just giving you what we've come up with so far, and then the committee can give us feedback on suggestions and things like, this or that kind of thing. Is that okay, Mr. Chair, then? And you go ahead and take it to see if
That sounds good, doesn't it, Amanda? That'll meet our needs there?
Oh, yes, yep.
Yep, perfect. So I'll turn it over now to Doug and Bill, okay?
Well, let's approve this motion. So I'll make that motion.
Doug makes the motion. Amanda, could you read it? And Dixie
Yeah.
Lee's going to
Need a seconder
second
first.
it.
Need a seconder first.
Yeah, Dixie Lee's seconding it.
Okay, yeah. Go for it, Amanda.
That the North Huron Museum Committee hereby receives the North Huron Museum report presented at the May 13th, 2021 committee meeting. And further that the committee agrees to incorporate the CKNX Barn Dance Society comments as discussed at the May 13th, 2021 meeting into the final report. And further that the committee agrees to incorporate the March 3rd, 2018 report by former Director of Recreation and Facilities titled North Huron Museum. And further that member Doug Kivenhoven and member Bill Farnell be selected to present the museum final report to council.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Okay, as you read that, Amanda, I just don't want that last thing to make council think that we're ready to present. Right? Like it says, select to present the delegation to council on behalf of the committee. That almost could be read into it that they're ready to do it. They're going to do it. So, we could leave that motion for another meeting, like that last chunk, just to not confuse council. Because I mean, it can be approved later, like the committee knows that we're preparing it, and then when the time comes that we're ready to do the final report, we approve the final report and we approve Doug and Bill to do the presentation. That can be a separate next meeting motion. And then that avoids making council think we're ready to present, because we're not. Does that make sense?
Man,
Yep, it's up to the committee for sure.
okay.
So I will propose dropping that last and further as an amendment to my motion, and then I think Dixie just has to.
Dixie Lee.
As seconder, I agree.
Okay,
Dixie Lee agrees, okay.
Yes.
Okay, no further comments. I'll turn that over to Amanda. Maybe I'll just have her read it first again, if she doesn't mind.
That the North Huron Museum Committee hereby receives the North Huron Museum report presented at the May 13th, 2021 committee meeting. And further that the committee agrees to incorporate the CKNX Barn Dance Society comments as discussed at the May 13th, 2021 meeting into the final report. And further that the committee agrees to incorporate the March 3rd, 2018 report by former Director of Recreation and Facilities titled North Huron Museum. And
Okay,
then we got moved by Doug and then seconded by Dixie Lee.
okay. Now
So
I turn it over to you.
thank you. Betty Lou Call,
You're on mute, Betty.
Yes,
Bill Farnell,
Yes.
David Wall,
Yes,
Dixie Lee Arbuckle,
Yes.
Doug Kivenhoven,
yes.
Joan Vandermeer,
Yes.
Verna Steffler,
Yes.
and Paul Heffer.
Yes.
Right, that carries 8-0.
Okay, now we're going to let Doug and Bill take over now at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think for as far as the minutes go, Amanda, we could just say then that Doug and Bill presented their draft presentation for comment that kind of stuff. So that the minutes show that we've done the draft and there's discussion, but that we didn't finalize it here. Okay, so some thoughts here. So I go first and then Bill will come next. And one of the thoughts we had was, one thing that was recommended by the committee is that there be printed copies of the reports ready for guests and council members. We can talk about that further when we get closer to a meeting that's hopefully going to be live in person. The other thought we had was to print up these admit one tickets for council members, printed, ready to hand out. The ticket would say something to the effect of admit one, or for a tour of the train station for you and your special and a guest. Okay, so each of the council members would be given this admit one thing, and on the ticket it would have the contact information, likely be my an email address and a cell phone number that they can text or call to arrange for a tour of the train station. So then that gets handed out. They have it specifically. And at the end of our presentation, we would challenge, or invite, I should say, invite each one of the council members to arrange to come to the train station to have their own guided tour, COVID regulations, everything, proper spacing and masks and that kind of stuff, before they make a decision on our report. So that we present it one council, and then 2 weeks later, they can make their decision. But between that time, day, night, weekend, anytime, that they would then come with their guests to the train station and have a look through it and hear and see what what the physical facility can be and look like. And then, of course, the PowerPoint presentation still needs to be tweaked. I might talk about one item as I go through the report. So, and when we're there, the first slide is up on the screen. That's the one of the train station and that kind of thing that's on in your package. So here we go. I stand up the lectern, acknowledge everybody. I think I'm supposed to call the Reeve the Honorable, something like that. How's that go, Paul? What's the proper terminology?
Worship, your worship, or
Your worship.
Yeah.
Okay, Your Worship and Honorable Council members, on behalf of the North Huron Museum Committee, I wish to thank Council for supporting the formation of our committee with the mandate to research and prepare this report, holding the report up, to relocate and reopen the North Huron Museum in the historic CNR train station, along with a visitor information center. I want to thank my fellow committee members for the many hours of meetings, research, miles traveled, phone calls, and emails that they put into preparing this report. COVID delayed completion of this report, but here we are at last. You have all received a PDF copy of the North Huron Museum report in advance of this meeting, and you may or may not have had time to read through the report and absorb all of the information provided. Bill Farnell and I will be making the committee's presentation to Council at this time. Bill has been a longtime member of the Friends of the Museum and is very knowledgeable about the North Huron Museum and how museums operate. So Bill will be speaking to what the North Huron Museum will look like in its new location. My expertise is more in the area of construction and finances, so I'll speak to those areas of the report. We plan to limit our presentation to, we're not actually sure how long it's going to be, how many minutes, after which we'll do our best to answer any questions that you may have. We are not expecting Council to make a decision on this report tonight. We expect Council will want to have more time to review the report and discuss it before arriving at a decision. In fact, we would ask that before making the decision, each member of Council register for a tour of the train station. We'll give you more details of that at the end of our presentation. Bill, take it away.
You're mute, Bill.
I thought I would be the only one that didn't forget, but there you go. What I need from you guys is a little bit of an opening. I'll tell you why. I don't want to sound like I'm just a talking head, because I'm introduced. So at the end, if you've got something to say, like I want to thank somebody, or we had a challenge or whatever, okay? Just that. All right, so I'm going to go through what I thought. In 1976, Williamstown Council adopted a bylaw to create community museum in accordance with provincial statutes and committee museum standards of that time. A brief but detailed history of this valuable asset can be found in the March 2018 report by former Director of Recreation and Facilities, Pat Newson. And please see Appendix blank in our report for more information. The building was closed and all museum programming was stopped in early 2018. In the past 10 years, museums around the world have begun to radically rethink and change their vision of how they interact with their communities and tell their stories, past and present. Today's museum cannot remain fully static, operating like other institutions have over the past decades. A museum must be relevant to the changing needs of its community and visitors. As libraries have evolved to be more than a collection of books, so has the role of community museums. To achieve the changing vision for our museum, promotional activities and programming reflect this new and dynamic direction for the future. Regarding promotional activities, we envision a Facebook page and museum website with links to the North Huron website, local businesses such as restaurants, B&Bs, motels, and tourist destinations. Developing partnerships with local communities and services, schools, sports, and cultural organizations and other institutions. Creating contacts with local and regional tourist information centers and local businesses, particularly those in the tourism industry. Programming activities will feature a variety of new and creative ideas, enhancing the museum's new direction, like permanent and temporary exhibits and programs telling compelling stories of our history and heritage, accessible archives for public research, programming for all ages and abilities, as diversity and inclusion are part of this new vision. Open shelving for most of the collection for public viewing. Mobile exhibits that will visit other locations within North Huron and beyond. Guided and self-guided tours with digital links to items within our collection. A venue for hosting both indoor and outdoor special events, concerts, speakers, and workshops of interest to a variety of visitors. Our mission statement, vision statement, and goals now match and support this newly energized approach for the future of our community museum. North Huron Museum is at a crossroads. This is Council's opportunity to move this valuable asset into the future. Let's continue to tell our amazing and historic cultural stories at our museum while promoting North Huron as a dynamic economic tourist center and family destination. We can tell and share our stories, past and present, in new and innovative ways. From the story of Edward Farley, who rafted on the Maitland River with family and baggage in tow in the spring melt of 1858 to reach his town plot. The Doc Cruikshank story of how one homemade crystal radio set made by Doc started an incredible media industry that made Wingham, in my youth, the television and radio town of Canada for many years. The Nobel Prize winning short stories by Alice Munro, Observing Life in Huron, North Huron, which appeal to readers around the world. We know from the labor market studies commissioned in 2014, following the Nobel Prize award, that there are many opportunities to reap economic benefits. Please see the positive economic impacts of a museum on page blank of our report. A good museum shares more than history. A good museum shares a never-ending story It celebrates the past, engages the present, and always looks to the future to remain relevant. Do I say thank you or just that's it? I don't know. Anyway, there you go, Beth.
Sounds good to me.
Doug, you're muted.
Doug, you're muted.
I'm not, I'm going into my part now, Lou, or were you telling me I was muted? So this is continuing now. So Bill's done his part, and now I come in to talk about the construction, the finances side, okay? So,
Can I say something to Bill?
Sure.
Bill, the only thing I don't hear there, and that's wonderful what you've done. Wonderful. But the only thing I don't hear anything about is the moving from a very worthy historic building to an equally moving historic building. And I don't know whether that comes in your part or Doug's part. And maybe you don't think that that needs to be said, but in my heart, it does. So I'm saying it.
Doug, don't you mention that in your section?
You're muted, Doug. You're muted, Doug.
keep getting muted. Okay, so let's just wait, Lou, until I finish through my presentation, and then we'll take comments on the whole thing, okay? Okay, so here we go. So thanks, Bill. That was, well, no, I won't say that. Thanks, Bill. That's great. So now I'm going to talk about the train station itself, the location, and the finance side of things. So the train station is a great location for the North Huron Museum. It's a historic building. It's on the main street. It has ample parking. It has usable outdoor space. It's barrier-free. It has air conditioning and gas heat. It's been well maintained. It's along the Wingham Community Trail, and it's aesthetically pleasing. There is one problem with the train station. It isn't big enough to store the artifacts. The solution proposed in the report is to move the 30-foot by 40-foot structure that is currently at the back of the property to the north side of the train station and join it to the train station with a wide hallway. And what I'll do is the PowerPoint then is going to show that slide where the building is joined to the train station and shows the building with the arrow pointing to it. The 1,200 square foot addition will then be outfitted with special movable shelving that runs on tracks in the floor. And I'll show the next slide that shows that. Members of the committee traveled to the Lambton Heritage Museum south of Grand Bend to look at their shelving as shown in the slide. This shelving will easily store all of the artifacts of the North Huron Museum. The cost for preparing the train station to become the new location for the North Huron Museum is estimated to be $300,000. The cost for relocating the artifacts is estimated to be $38,000 more than the cost of deaccessioning the artifacts. So the combined cost of preparing the train station and the additional cost of moving and cataloging, properly cataloging that, having a curator oversee that, is an additional $38,000, so a combined cost of $338,000. No tax dollars would be used to pay for the costs of preparing the train station for housing the North Huron Museum, nor for the extra cost of relocating the artifacts. The committee will take responsibility for raising the $338,000 through grants, donations, and fundraising events. I had this written before our meeting, so in light of our discussion, let's not go there again. Carrying on. This next part, I will probably have a slide up to show the numbers so that, because it's a little bit complicated, but I'm kind of making a case here. So hear me out. So imagine a slide that kind of in simple form shows these numbers, how this math works. The annual cost of operating the museum is estimated to be $44,370. If you look closely at the operating costs for the museum on page 19 of the report, you will see that that included in the $44,370 is, under expenditures, part-time salary of $10,770 plus benefits of $3,125 for a total of $13,900. Okay, $13,900 is for a part-time salary person. This is allocating an average of 8 hours of staff time per week to the museum for coordinating volunteers and working with volunteers to do the programming and planning. Further on that report, under the building expense, there's a line for salary of $4,000 plus benefits of $1,200 equals $6,200. This is allocation for public works to do snow removal, lawn care, and building maintenance. So $20,000 of the $44,370 operating budget is an allocation of 8 hours per week of an existing staff person and the works department doing snow removal, lawn cutting, and building maintenance. That's and on the slide, it'll show you the 13,900 plus the 6,200. That gets you to the 20,000 I'm talking about. Is the North Huron Museum is North Huron going to hire an additional staff person for the 8 hours a week time allocation for the North Huron Museum? No. Is the Works Department going to need to hire additional staff to cut the grass and plow the snow at the North Huron Museum, especially when it's right next to the Works Department? No. Both these operating budget staff allocations items for the North Huron Museum will not increase the actual budget for the Township of North Huron. The annual budget will not go up because you won't be hiring an additional staff person. You won't be adding people to the Works Department. So the net hard cost to the North Huron is $44,370 less the $20,000 equals $24,370. So about $25,000 of hard costs for things like heat, insurance, cleaning, those kind of things, inspections. Those are the hard cost is really $25,000 out of that $44,370. Is there a cost benefit for the Township of North Huron? Yes, indeed. The North Huron Strategic Plan has an action item in it to establish a visitor information center. What better place can you think of than in the historic train station and museum for locating a visitor information center? Demographics clearly show that over the next 20 years, there is a huge wave of baby boomers retiring that have expendable income. Some call it the silver tsunami. Many of these retiring baby boomers have time and money and will be looking for things to do. The North Huron Museum can be a destination for these baby boomers, not only to look at the museum, but as a hub to connect them to other things to see and do in North Huron. A museum gives a community a wider presence in the world. 85% of North American tourists who travel Ontario sought an arts or cultural activity. Museums have a positive ripple effect on a community's local economy. Can we afford not to capitalize on this unique one-time opportunity to reopen the North Huron Museum in the historic train station combined with a visitor information center? Can we afford to lose the historic artifacts that tell the stories of Doc Cruikshank, Earl Haywood, Alice Munro, George Agnew Reed, Harry Boyle, the CKNX Barn Dance, and those who served in the World Wars? It is so important that we preserve the artifacts and stories of North Huron history. On behalf of the committee, I wish to thank you all for taking the time to listen to receive this report and to listen to it. And now it is an important decision, and the committee believes that each council member needs to walk through and around the train station before making a decision on this report. We're therefore handing out to you VIP tickets to register for individual, physically distanced private tours of the train station for you and a guest of your household. Each ticket provides you with contact information that you can text, email, or phone to arrange for a date and time, daytime, evening, weekend, weekday, between now and the next council meeting to take a tour of the train station and see for yourself this incredible opportunity for North Huron. Thank you for taking the time to read our report and to listen to our presentation. At this time, if there are any questions, we'll do our best to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug and Bill. Superb. Okay, I open it up to the floor. Do you have anything that you want to comment? Verna, I think I saw your hand.
I think it's well done. I would certainly tell you to go right ahead with the museum.
Anybody else? Dave?
I'd like to thank Bill and Doug for putting that together. I'm wondering what we can do to get public support. Like, could we have an information night for the public to see the report after it's presented to council before their decision is made, or something like that? Like, what can we do to stir up support?
Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, our strategy is to be in an in-person council meeting. And an in-person council meeting would be held in the town hall theater with physically distanced among the seats, but there's 400 seats. So spreading everybody out, you could probably get 100 people in there if you really wanted to. And so I think the strategy would be that we would invite, because there are plenty of people that want to see this museum. So we would invite all those people, by person, by phone, by email, by whatever, to come out to this meeting and to show support. And we would want to fill the gallery to the allowable capacity with people that are in support of it. And there'd be people there that are against it as well, but I mean, we'll have people in support. And potentially selected members of the audience, people that we speak to, would want to take advantage of the allowable 2 minutes per person to speak to any item on the agenda. So, we could have a number of selected people to step up and say, hey, I'm a member of this community and there's all kinds of money been spent on, and I won't say it, but the dam and, and on recreation and sports and all that. And we think it's important that there be something allocated towards culture. And we think this is a good thing. So, I mean, different people could be brought in to do that. I think that would be the maximum impact. And that's why I'm really pushing to say, we got to do this in person.
Okay. Anything else anybody like to share?
Dixie Lee, are you going or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand, Vicky.
Stand by, Paul. I've got a.
Oh, who is it, Dixie Lee or Vicky? I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
It was Vicky, but I have a barking dog as well.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Vicky.
So I think it's very well done. Good job, guys. Gonna be the negative here, the downer on it a little bit, okay? When I think we started on this path, it was, we just pick up a staff person and locate them there. But we're talking about something a little bit different now. Now you're talking about allocating 20% of their time. That's basically what it is. 8 hours a week, that's a day. So there is going to be some cost to the township because that work has to be done, and how we're going to get it done, we're already stretched the limits. So that's just bringing that forward, that you were probably going to be faced that question or that thought by council, because we are changing, the township is changing, and as we're changing and evolving with technology and things like that, there's different things that are being added on to staff's plates, and we are maxed out right now. Like during COVID, sure, there's some projects we can do and things, but we've lost, like a lot of our staff is laid off, but as soon as we're up and running again, that's a totally different situation.
Thank you, Vicky. Anybody else? Well, I just want to reiterate how great job done by Doug and Bill, and again, with all the input from each person on the screen here. Just want to thank you very much for that. And I'm not sure, but I think it probably came out. I could have missed it. That you mentioned about a great group of volunteers that are that are very familiar with museum work, but I think maybe Bill did mention that. I got a short memory, but that's fine. But, I just want people, I want them to know that there is, go ahead, Bill, sorry. You're muted, Bill.
I never mentioned anything about volunteers because of course we're not open.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay, understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Doug?
Yeah, I think good point. And when I talk about the allocating the 8 hours to the museum, I could add to that, impress to the point that, you know, we are looking at a museum that will be primarily volunteer driven. We just need a coordinator. So I think I'll expand on that. I appreciate that. Expand on that. And I think back to Lou, did we cover your point, or should we impress that somewhere a bit more?
No, that felt good. I didn't know you were going to talk again. So
Yeah.
I just thought I'd get it in for Bill, so it could be heard by everybody. No, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dixie Lee, you had your hand up?
Sure, a couple of things. Let's not forget that a portion of that staff person's time is also going to go towards the tourist center as well as the museum. And the second point about volunteers, new people coming to town or coming to the area who are probably, you know, the silver tsunami, are going to be looking for places not just to visit, but to volunteer and offer their skills. So the museum gives them one more venue to contribute to the community.
Thank you. Very well. Very well said, Dixie Lee. Anything else? I'm missing somebody on the screen. Okay, Doug.
Well, let Dave go first then.
Okay, Dave. Dave, go ahead.
No,
You're on mute, Dave.
When you're naming off some of the attractions of the area and the people, we should have something more from Blythe, like the theater, and mentioned some people that the people that founded the Thrashers and things like that. They give them a little bit of a build up too. That they're part of North Huron. I think if you could add something about Blythe in there to maybe help get support.
Yeah, Lou, go ahead. I can't hear you, Lou.
I have just sent a letter to Doug that you will not have seen, and it's from the Thrashers and the hobby group. And I have been in touch with them 4 times, and they are very wanting to be contacted and to have input, but that's coming only through a letter. So I don't know if that's wide enough for what you're thinking, Dave.
Yeah. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, this is good input. Where I talk about the demographics and the museum giving a wider presence in the world, it'd be a good spot where I could sneak in some of the attractions that we have. Like, I mean, we've got the Blythe Memorial, like the Blythe Theater, and we've got you know, the Thrashers and whatever other things there was. So yeah, so I could insert that in there and talk about some of the attractions that we have instead of just saying, you know, that we become a yeah, anyway, I'll try to add that in there then. That's good. Oh yeah.
Was there another hand? I think Verna had her hand up, maybe. Oh, no. Okay, sorry. So I just had one question. Throw it out if you don't like it. I just was reading these letters over, and I just noticed from the Blythe BIA that we support this. I'm just not sure. I'm just bringing that out. Like, I just thought that was sort of a bit of a maybe I'm not saying a low blow, but something it doesn't show the same as other letters. Let's put it that way. Yes, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Blythe said that it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything to have it. So, I mean, I didn't feel like I should intentionally edit that letter out and just simply not include it. I thought, to be fair, I've invited all these people to give their reports. So, you know, there are going to be voices like that. So I thought,
Understandably, I just want to bring that. That's
yeah,
fine.
I couldn't reword it or something. That's what they worded and that's what they said.
Yep.
So
Yep. Fine.
that's
Okay.
that's kind of got to stick with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Like what Bill or Paul, when council is having the discussion about making the decision, I mean, there's Vicky's point that, you know, they're stretched for staff and stuff like that. But I mean, then there's also the Ec Dev is pushing to hire somebody for Ec Dev. So I mean, that Ec Dev role that they're looking for, whether it's full-time or part-time, I mean, if they're gonna, it's the total budget that you're looking at. And so if you're going to say, well, we should have somebody that focuses on some Ec Dev stuff and promoting the town, then that role could be rolled into into the person that's in the museum, the staff person that's in the museum, right? So
Yeah.
That's a side discussion, but I mean, if it comes down to costs and the 8 hours that Vicky's talking about, well, you know, I'm not arguing against you, Vicky. I totally understand it, but I mean, the whole big budget of the town, and if they're looking at hiring an Ec Dev person, well, let's figure something out, because can't the museum get 8 hours, like just a mere 8 hours a week out of some staff person somewhere to do the vital? So I think that's something that you as a council member are going to have to step up to the plate and say, guys, look at, like, this is a big deal that we're going to go lose this museum forever. The artifacts of Alice Munro will go somewhere else, and you know, all these stories will be lost, and that's the end. You're not going to bring it back. So, like, do we really want to, you know, pitch this out the door because of 8 hours of staff time, you know, and 20 some odd thousand a year? So
because you clearly bring out there about the building being donated and it's going to be a working museum when it's done, as you say, no tax dollar costs. Want to make sure that comes out good and clear and whatnot. But yes.
Okay.
So, is there anything else that anybody wanted to share? Okay. So move on to number. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Actually, whoops.
Go ahead, Joan.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I see you, Joan. I see you.
Doug, I'm not sure if you made it clear when you were talking that that building is being donated, and maybe that's you being modest, but they need to hear it.
You're muted. You're muted, Doug.
Somebody else will have to say that. You know, it can be, I think it can, again, that's part of your argument, Paul, with the council. You know, if you're pro the museum, you say, guys, you know, holy macro, we got a $500,000 building and property. We got $300,000 that's getting donated. You know, there's going to be 800,000. It's going to be, you know, dang near $1 million bucks by the time we're through with this. That is going to be an asset that belongs to the town. And they didn't pay any tax dollars for it. What was I going to say? I was going to say, oh yeah, you were about to move on, and I just wanted to make sure, with as far as the minutes go, Amanda, is that Bill and Doug presented their first run through of the presentation, and we'll do further work on it and further work on the PowerPoint presentation for the next meeting. That sound okay?
Does that work for you, Amanda?
I have to do the minutes without note or comment, so
Okay.
I'll have to do that.
All right. It's just that what I want to make clear, Amanda, is that we aren't finished with this report, like Bill and I.
Yep, I do have draft in the minutes.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's just as long as that's clear in the minutes.
And there's two hands went up here. I saw Dixie and then Joan.
No, Amanda said she has the word draft in there, that's all.
Okay,
So, good, yeah.
Joan, you had your hand up?
I was just thinking if, I didn't realize she had the word draft in, but if we, as a committee, accepted their draft presentation, we don't need to do that though if I jumped the gun.
Okay, and anything else before we move on to number 9? Okay, number 9, next steps, scheduling of the next meeting. This is where Lou was talking about things earlier here, and Doug, I saw your hand go up.
Well, just the 9 next steps then. The next step is going to be, we will meet again to review the next release, the further adjustments or further additions to the report, and Doug and Bill's presentation and PowerPoint. So we're going to meet again to have to go over that stuff again. Make sure it's 100%.
Yeah, okay, Bill, you had something? No, can't hear you, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Were you writing something for the barn dance to send to Dave? Or is Dave writing something for that part of our presentation?
I asked our presidents, the Baxters, to send a letter, and I guess if they didn't send it in yet, I'll have to jog their memory.
Doug?
I think we agreed that what we would write, and we would just say expecting. So we're not going to wait for them. That we get the waiting time, and you're waiting to meet stuff like that. So, until you have a meeting, you can't really do it. So, Joan, would you kind of, you're a great penman. Why don't you draft, put a little something together with what we talked about before and fire that to me, and then I'll add it to the report.
Okay, that's looked after that. Joan, go ahead.
I'll CC it to you and Dave so that Dave approves the wording.
Good. So
Thank you.
we'll work that out for the next report then, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's number 10. Now we're to number 11, adjournment. That the North Huron Museum Committee agrees that there being no further business before the committee, the meeting be hereby adjourned at
Sorry, Paul.
3:24,
Just
but
the
we need
schedule of the next meeting,
the schedule of the next meeting will be
June 10th
June 10th.
at 2 p.m.
June 10th.
Let's see.
2 p.m. will be okay. That the North Huron Museum Committee agree that there be no further business. Our next meeting will be at scheduled June 10th at 2 p.m. and we're adjourning at 3:25. I thank you very much for your time. Was there anything that need to be added there? Did I miss anything? You're all
Paul,
right.
just if there's no more discussion, I'll just read the adjournment motion.
Okay, go ahead.
That the North Huron Museum Committee agree that there being no further business before the committee, the meeting be hereby adjourned at 3:25 p.m.
I have a mover. Joan, Berna, yours, Amanda.
Dixie Lee Arbuckle,
Yes,
David Wall,
Yes,
Doug Hagenhoven,
Yes.
Joan Vandermeer,
Yep.
Bill Farnell,
Yes.
Verna Steffler,
Yes.
Betty Lou Call,
Did you say yes?
Paul, was that a yes?
Betty Lou?
Did you get that? Yes?
Yes, thanks. I don't watch the video, so. And Chair Paul Heffer?
Yes.
We all get stung by that mute button.
Thanks very much, folks. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe.
You got another meeting.